مارتن فان فيلين الرئيس السابق للفاو اللي باش يقدم لنا تأثير التغيرات المناخية على الفلاحة في زامبيا. تفضل.
Good afternoon, everybody. Oh no. Can we try that again, please? Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Now I know that I have your attention. Unfortunately, it seems that this is, when I do like this, you do. Okay. I'm going to describe to you a project that we are working on in Zambia that has to do with rural agriculture and how that will be affected by climate change. The project itself forms part of a larger project that has to do primarily with water supply and sanitation and how that is at risk from climate change, but it also includes agriculture. We have to ensure that boreholes are climate change resilient, use appropriate technology for water, and then, importantly, keeping water in the local areas and smart agriculture, mitigate the effects of deforestation and community participation. We have to prepare a manual for the actions that have to be taken to mitigate the effects of climate change. We then have to field test what has been proposed and then finish off with the manual. The project area is in the west of Zambia and is in the upper reaches of the Zambezi River. Now, climate change is one of the I am not sure what is happening here. I seem to have lost a lot of slides. Okay, let's go. The predicted effect of climate change is that warming, and this is on a global level, warming will be more over the land area than the sea area. Let's carry on. Next one. In Africa, and specifically Africa south of the Sahara, the climate is driven by the intertropical convergence zone. And that convergence zone moves up and down with the sun. At the moment, we are entering or into the dry season because the sun is now in the northern hemisphere. We have already seen significant change in temperature, about 1.5 degrees. One back. Yes. Next one. This has a predicted effect, and this internationally is done on the basis of 4 predicted scenarios. The only one that I'm going to share with you is the one there marked in yellow, the so-called representative concentration pathway 4.5, which says that greenhouse gas emissions will peak around the middle of the century and then decline rapidly over the next 30 years. The middle of the century is probably as long as it will take to get rid of some of the international leaders that do not seem to believe in climate change. No names, no pectoral. The temperature trends then, and this is one of the areas in Zambia that we are studying, Sananga, and you can see the blue line there, and that predicts towards the end of the century, more or less an increase of 2.5 degrees in temperature. Now, what does this mean? Because what is temperature? Is it so important that it's getting a bit hot? The effect is on the rainfall. And the rainfall, the change in rainfall will be about 10%. Now, 10% in that part of the world is not that much. In the south of the study area, the average annual rainfall is about 700 millimeters. In the north, it is 1,500, 1,600. So that is not the real effect. The effect on the farming is that the rainfall patterns are going to change. Whereas normally in the past, you had an early rainfall around about October, early spring rainfall. That rainfall has shifted. In South Africa, we have lost a huge area that was used for wheat production under dryland farming, rain-fed farming. Because of this change in the rainfall pattern, and that has now changed to pasture and other crops. You can do that if you are a commercial farmer. But if you are a subsistence farmer, you cannot change. You are caught. We then did a risk assessment to see, okay, what is going to happen, what is the risk, and what can be done. For agriculture, we looked at livestock, crop, and also fishing. The impact on agriculture is that maize production is affected by drought and the late start of the rainy season. Rice is impacted by droughts and also the late arrival of floods in the floodplain area. Some strains of cassava are drought resilient, but the late start of the rainy season will affect them as well. And the livestock, of course, is impacted by drought. Risk is divided into 3 categories: low, medium, and high. And the way that you determine in which category it is you look at the likelihood that something will happen, and you also look at the consequence. To give an example, the likelihood that the sun will not shine tomorrow is very low. But the consequence, if it doesn't shine, will be extremely disastrous. But in terms of that risk assessment, because the likelihood is so low, the risk falls in the low category. We don't really have to worry about it. We then looked at the different aspects of agriculture. What was the aspect? What is the impact of that? And then how does that fall in a risk category? The determination of the aspect and the impact, and also the risk, was determined by means of a work session that involved all stakeholders and the public. So this was a sort of a consensus agreement that we came to. And we looked at the various aspects and determined all of those. This is all in your handout, so I'm not going to go into the detail, because I'm very afraid of that lady. Now, in preparation of our manual, we looked at, first of all, what is the aspect, what are the mitigating aspects, and then what has to be done. We then determined not only what has to be done, but we also determined who has to do it. Some of these things are long-term. The government has to rethink their policies. That's not going to happen tomorrow. It's a long-term thing. There are some other things that can be done on a shorter term. We can carry on. We looked at flood. We looked at the rainfall timing. Carry on. We looked at the land use. And the fish related. Fish, incidentally, there's a type of fish called the Zambezi bream. Very tasty, good to eat, and therefore it has a high value. And because it has a high value, everybody tries to catch a fish in order to sell it. And if there are no measures put in place to limit the fishing, that resource will be exhausted very quickly. So we looked at the fish. Can you go one back? I am not sure what happened. This is not my final presentation. What I want to say then in conclusion, climate change is going to devastate these small-scale farmers. They haven't got the ability to adapt to the change. There will have to be, from the scientific and the engineering committee, a significant input on how to overcome the problems. And then it will take government to take some very brave decisions. And we, as engineers and scientists, will have to assist government to make those decisions. At the last, what I want to say to you is, I am an engineer. I am an African engineer. And in my profession, I take deep pride. Thank you very much.
شكراً.